Welcome, everyone. This is Ashley Elenbaas with Sky House Herb School and Apothecary. And today this is our third episode for Devotional Mysticism and Plant Teachers. And I'm joined here with my wonderful colleague and friend and teacher, Rukmini Walker. So welcome, Rukmini.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this beautiful chance to discuss the autumn season.
Yeah, I feel like, a lot of what we end up talking about when we are chatting on the phone or sending messages or sharing things, it's always nature. There's always some hook from the natural world that just, it excites us so much. It's hard to contain. So I feel like this series is just an overflowing, it's like the cup. We have such there's so much imagery and symbolism in this in the work of the natural world, and I just love these chances to share and chat about them with you here.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So if you wouldn't mind, I'd love if you could open our space with some devotional chanting, just to set us in the mood for deep reflection.
Okay, very good. Let me begin. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. And I'd like to add one more Sanskrit prayer because there's so much suffering in the world right now. And I think this one really reaches out to touch the suffering of all people right now. So I'll say it in English and then I'll say it in Sanskrit. This is by a little child saint from Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavat Purana, Prahlad Maharaj. May the entire universe be blessed with peace and good hope. May everyone driven by envy and enmity become pacified and reconciled. May all living beings develop abiding concern for the welfare of others. May our own hearts and minds be filled with purity and serenity. May all these blessings flow naturally from this supreme benediction. May our attention become spontaneously absorbed in the rapture of love unto the transcendent Lord. Now I'd like to say it in Sanskrit. Svasyastu visvasya kalo prasidatam Dhanyantu bhutani shivam mitodiya Manascha bhadram bhajatadadhoksaje Aveshatam no matirapya hoituki.
Thank you so much. It's beautiful. I never tire of hearing you sing these beautiful prayers.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So, we're in this autumn season now, and we want to talk about lessons from autumn leaves. And to me, autumn, the light is so clear and crisp. The air and the light is so clear and crisp like the leaves during autumn season. And, I always like to catch moments of the sun shining through the leaves on the trees, like as though each leaf is electrified by the sunlight in these electric colors of reds and yellows and greens and sometimes purples. And it's just so beautiful to just be out in the clear air and so crisp, the light and the air, like the leaves themselves.
The imagery, you can't turn from it. It's just I'm looking out my window and I have maple trees and they just put on such a spectacular show. And there is something and I think, one thing that I notice as I get older is the cycles, it's like these seasonal cycles and how many metaphorical teachings they have and that they carry. The leaves, especially, in the spring, we've got these, you know, succulent little baby, these, they start off with this just really dear color. It's just very, very bright and young. And
Mm,
then they start to grow and they gather sunlight and they gather energy so that they can feed these fruits and seeds and flowers and make the children of the next generation. So they
mm,
go through that part and so the leaves, give that energy to the seeds and the flowers and the fruits. And
mm,
then, once they all reach maturity, then the leaves start to fade and there's like that time in the late summer where everything starts to dry out and it's not autumn yet, but
mm.
that place where it's like you can just feel the luster,
Yes.
that shininess. It's like, okay, there's a quiet coming.
You
There's
know, there's something I have to interrupt and say I was once in Russia, and at that time of year, in the Russian language, they have a special name for that time when it's not really autumn yet, and it's not summer any longer. They call it woman's summer because it's more gentle than the heat of the summer. So I had to just
Oh, I
mention that
love
to you.
that.
Isn't that
And
beautiful?
I
Yeah.
think a lot of cultures have, I know in the Chinese calendar, they have a season called late summer. So late
Mhm.
summer is its own season because there's a transition place. It's
Mhm.
gentle, it's very gradual. I think sometimes, we can have summer can just sort of come on and you're like, oh, it's now summer. But there's this gentleness that happens as the energy fades into autumn. And the
Yeah.
leaves are the reflection of that. If we watch, the quality of the leaves reflects all of that. And yeah, and then as the leaves start to fall and they, the trees give them away. It's
Mm.
not the trees are not, there's no clutching. It just says,
Yeah.
okay, it's we're letting this phase has now passed and there's a new phase coming.
Letting go.
You
Just
know,
letting go.
letting
Yeah.
go. And if we in our aging process could be so generous with ourselves.
So beautiful. So beautiful. Um, there's a wedding blessing in India. They say, may you live for 100 autumns, which
Wow.
I find beautiful and gentle as well. But yeah, that idea of letting go so graciously and transforming into something new, right?
Yeah. And that winter time is such, maybe we could do a talk on winter, but the
Definitely.
trees in winter, that's their gathering time. That's when the bears go into the cave to dream.
Mhm.
But the autumn is that letting go and it's those later years in life. And I was thinking about one of the books that you recommended to me quite a while ago. It was Richard Rohr's book called Falling Upward. Do you?
Absolutely. One of my favorites. He talks about how the second half of life is more important because we've already achieved, and this is the time for really centering and letting go and finding that centering place of who am I really? I love that book. Yeah.
Yeah, he has a quote in there where he says, in the second half of life, we don't ask, we have to turn our focus to not what am I here to do, but who am I?
Mm,
Who am I at my essence? And, the first half of life is so much about doing and achieving, like you said, but that second half is more about being and honoring and reflecting. And then like the leaves giving, that dissemination of wisdom, knowledge, care.
mm,
There's a sort of selflessness in that stage of life that I highly recommend to all of you listeners to read this book. And tell me, can you remind me about Richard Rohr's background?
He's a Franciscan priest, and he's worked with men in prisons. He's been a prison chaplain, and he has a center. I think it's called Center for Peace and Contemplation, something like that, in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So he's worked with men who meet their father, he said, for the first time in prison. So
Mm,
he's, he's a very, very deep thinker and a out of the box Catholic, I would say,
yeah.
a very beloved teacher. But yeah, so yeah, this is a time for centering. And when you said that about doing and being, I was thinking of the Bhagavad Gita and how doing is really about passionate work, but being is when we come into the centering of goodness, to be and to exist. So that the autumn, the time of harvest, the fruition of all growth, and not only in the plant world, but in our relationships as well. The seeds we've sown, now we reap. And I was thinking of how we gather together, the home and hearth and Thanksgiving time, and just really reaping the beauty and the rewards of those relationships as well in
Mm,
the autumn season. you know and to me, it's such a time of longing. I was remembering that song, which I don't know if I could sing it properly, but I'll miss you most of all when autumn leaves begin to fall.
mm.
That
Is
just
that
that
Joni Mitchell?
I'm not sure, but I think Nat King Cole, probably Joni Mitchell did it as well. But I think on the bhakti path, we we try to access the what's eternal through what's temporary. And so I think the impermanence of autumn leaves just makes their beauty all the more poignant, and yeah, just that letting go of just appreciating and letting it go,
Mm,
appreciating and let it go. So beautiful to me.
yeah. And it's true. I think when you know you're going to lose something, it
Mm,
becomes even more dear, you know?
absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I have to mention right now, since you said that, I just for the first time saw one of the most stunning films that I've ever seen in my life. It's called Grief Walker. Um, it's done by the Canadian Film Board. So I would highly recommend any of our listeners to take a look at that beautiful film about grief and letting go, and celebrating the sort of the impermanence of this world, and in that way accessing something even eternal.
Wow. Yeah,
Mm.
I went on a walk yesterday with my dogs and the leaves were just kind of falling around me. And I was thinking about, it's so hard to not think about death, I think, during this season and letting go. And so I was just thinking about that. And I had this thought, I was like, you know what? Death is natural,
Absolutely.
you know?
Absolutely.
And I don't know why it never struck me like that, but I was like, just like everything dies. It seems unnatural when a person dies. Like, well, this can't be.
But we have a denying culture, and other cultures that are closer to the earth, many of Native American traditions or indigenous traditions from all over the world, they honor those transitions, and they honor death rituals as well. Um, you know, they say that joy is the gift of love, and grief is the price of love.
Mm,
But these are the twin sides of love. And I think this is wholeness, this is maturity. We're talking about really coming to fruition, coming to maturity here.
yeah.
So I think, can I share this poem by Emily Bronte?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is what she's talking about. It's called Fall, Leaves, Fall, Die. Fall, leaves, fall, die. Flower away, lengthen night and shorten day. Every leaf sparks bliss to me, fluttering from the autumn tree. I shall smile when wreaths of snow blossom where the rose should grow. I shall sing when night's decay ushers in a drearier day.
Mm, to carry joy like that. Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
Through
yeah,
all the seasons, you know?
Yeah,
How do
and
we
how
do
we
that?
go to that poignant place when the day is dreary. Like today outside, it's just raining, and I'm looking out my window, and one tree is yellow and the oak tree is still green. And but yeah, just that, what does that dreariness evoke in us?
Mhm.
It's profound, actually, but we tend to push it away. Oh, that just brings me to this poem by Rumi, if I can share that. Okay. Well, let me share this first. There's this idea, this term swan song, which is so interesting, that the idea that swans are really silent um, for their lives, for their lifetimes. But then at the time just before they die, I don't know if this is a fact or if it's an ancient belief, but that before they die, they sing this beautiful song before their death. And it reminds me of the vibrant reds and greens and yellows and all the autumn leaves before they fall to the ground. So I was thinking
Mhm.
of that, but here's this is one of my favorites from Rumi. And he says, sorrow prepares you for joy. It violently sweeps everything out of your house so that new joy can find space to enter. It shakes the yellow leaves from the bough of your heart so that fresh green leaves can grow in their place. It pulls up the rotten roots so that new roots hidden beneath have room to grow. Whatever sorrow shakes from your heart, far better things will take their place.
Mm. Yeah,
Mhm.
it can be very gutting, like when you hear about the passing or a trauma, how your gut, you just get this, it guts you. That's the saying, right?
Mhm.
But then yeah, I love that image of, well, what's put in its place?
What's growing? What's sort of forcing the old growth out? The new growth is coming, and pushing those yellow leaves out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Mm. We have this beautiful poem from Mary Oliver we wanted to share. Should I share that one?
Yes. Perfect timing. Yes.
Okay. We love Mary Oliver. She says this is called Song for Autumn. Don't you imagine the leaves dream now? How comfortable it will be to touch the earth instead of the nothingness of the air and the endless freshets of wind. And don't you think the trees, especially those with mossy hollows, are beginning to look for the birds that will come, 6 or a dozen, to sleep inside their bodies? And don't you hear the goldenrod whispering goodbye, the everlasting being crowned with the first tuffets of snow? The pond stiffens, and the white field over which the fox runs so quickly brings out its long blue shadows. The wind wags its many tails, and in the evening, the piled firewood shifts a little, longing to be on its way.
Hmm. I mean, this is like that. I forget the name, the word for this. It's like a Swedish word. Is it like it means cozy? It's like dunk. Do you know this word?
No.
There's a very specific word. I'm sure our listeners will remind me of it, but it's that they have in like Finland and Denmark, like these the words that mean it's like a certain feeling, like dunka or like coziness. And that poem for me is like nature. Mary Oliver's describing how everything cozies up and gets closer to itself, and there's a pleasant experience for the
Mm.
trees and the birds and the fields and the grasses as they prepare for the winter.
And what does she say, that the pile of firewood it shifts a little, longing to be on its way, longing to be what? Thrown into the fire, right?
Yeah,
Wow. So
yeah.
it's a season of gathering together, and within ourselves, nature's bounty before the winter's rest.
Yeah. And I think it also is a season of inspiration too. I mean, as you know, as much as there is the sadness and the longing, there's also the like fireworks. You know, I think there was a writer that wrote that the autumn leaves are the second spring, or like the flowers of the second flowering of nature. So there's also this exuberance. And Mary Oliver again comes to us with a poem about it's called Aunt Leaf. Can I read this one? This is
Yes,
really
you bet.
sweet.
Yes.
Needing one, I invented her, the great great aunt dark as hickory, called Shining Leaf, or Drifting Cloud, or Beauty of the Night. Dear aunt, I'd call into the leaves. She'd rise up like an old log in a pool and whisper in a language that only the two of us knew, the word that meant follow. And we'd travel cheerful as birds out of the dusty town into the trees, where she would change us both into something quicker: two foxes with black feet, two snakes as ribbons, two shimmering fish, and all day we'd travel. At the day's end, she'd leave me at my back door with the rest of my family, who were kind but solid as wood and rarely wandered, while she, old twists of feather and birch bark, would walk in circles as wide as the rain and then float back, scattering the rags of twilight.
Beautiful. That really must be it begs to become a book, or
It
maybe
really does.
maybe
Yeah.
even a film. It's beautiful.
And then
It's
the last line, she says, "This bone dream, this friend I had to have, this old woman made out of leaves." Yeah, that would be a wonderful children's book, I think.
beautiful, beautiful, yeah. So, gathering together, equinox, the time is coming, the days are becoming equal, then the nights become longer until we approach December, and time to gather our energies together and direct our energy within.
Yeah.
Families gathering together again, hearth and home and families, and then, what about storing up the excess, right? Like canning and squirrels gathering all their acorns and putting them away in places they'll never find, right?
Right.
So yeah, like we can be the same way, so
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
And I mean, that's kind of like the season of Kartik is it's a celebration of this time of year, you know, with the lights. And maybe you could talk a little bit about it, because I feel like that's such a um some of the imagery there in
Yeah.
Damodar is it conjures up that, like, yeah, families together and mischief happening.
Yeah, it's so true. Actually, there's a chapter in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Purana called Description of Autumn. And it's a chapter full of so many metaphors. And yeah, so on the bhakti path, this month of Kartik, it's called Damodar or Kartik. Kartik is a name for Radharani, so it's dedicated really to the sacred feminine. And it follows the lunar calendar, so it shifts every year. This year it's from October 9th until November 7th. But it's a very sacred time of year. Um, it's considered to be a very holy and sacred thing to offer a light or a lamp to your favorite form of divinity. In the bhakti path, it's always the baby Damodar at this time, because this is the season when he steals the butter. This is actually, it's said that this pastime happened on the Diwali day, which is the Indian New Year. So he's stealing the butter um, from his mother, and then he gives in charity to his friends the monkeys, and he's stealing and giving to the monkeys, and then she feels like she has to chastise him, otherwise he could grow up to be a terrible criminal. So then she follows his buttery little baby footprints out the door from where he broke the butter pot, and then she catches him, and she decides that she should tie him up to keep him out of further mischief. And then the story goes on. It's so, so beautiful in Srimad Bhagavatam. But and then there's a song about, maybe we can play a little clip when we offer this podcast, maybe play a clip of my son Gauravani and his beautiful colleague Srivani singing this Damodar Astakam, it's called. And it's a beautiful thing during this season. It's said that even people who are not really very serious on the spiritual path, if they do something, offer something like a little light, or like the Catholics do in the season of Lent, to maybe do a little something extra, or maybe not do something that they could live without for a short time, that there's immense spiritual benefit during this Kartik season. And yeah, it's also a time of remembering. Wait, you know what? I want to read. It's a time of remembering the songs of the gopis. So I thought maybe I could sing one of those.
Yeah.
But first I want to share some of these metaphors from this chapter, the description of autumn. So let me share a little something. During autumn, the moon looks very bright along with the stars in the clear sky. When the sky is clear of all clouds, the stars at night shine very beautifully. In the same way, a person on the path of bhakti or devotion to Krishna or God becomes cleared of clouds in the heart and becomes as beautiful as the stars in the autumn sky. So I love that one. And then here's another one. During autumn, the fields become filled with ripened grains. At that time, the people become happy over the harvest and observe various religious ceremonies, offering new grains to the Lord. And then there's this other one that I find really interesting. It's sort of a social commentary, like a little twist of a knife, that says that, listen to this, that in autumn there's an abundance of food grains, right? But sometimes governments who are unaware of the actions of a supernatural power become unhappy because they're afraid of a competitive price, and they restrict the farmers from producing too much grain. Sometimes they actually tell the farmers to throw their produce and their grains into the ocean.
Mm.
How greedy, right?
Yeah.
And then it says, not knowing the fact that all food grains are supplied by the Lord who maintains the creation and provides whatever is required by the living beings, sometimes because of human greed and wars, cause famines because of government intervention and nationalisms not caring for others and the needs of different people in different countries. Isn't that an interesting social
Yeah.
commentary?
It's
I
so
thought that
true
was
today.
so true, isn't it? Yeah. So during this Kartik season, the prayer of the devotees on the bhakti path is, I'm not asking for liberation. I'm not asking for any material benediction. I only want your favor, my dear Lord, so that I can always think of you and remember you. And please deliver me by that remembrance. So, yeah, this idea of lighting a simple lamp or a candle, what we do is we twist a little cotton so that it has a pointy top, and then dip it in ghee or in oil, and then just offer it. And again, the impermanence, but the eternality of that offering is so beautiful. So if I may, there's another place where the autumn season is mentioned in this songs of the gopis. They're searching for Krishna, who's disappeared from them. They're in the forest. He's called them out by flute song, and he's called them out and then he's disappeared. And so they offer these beautiful prayers. That means maybe I'll sing one in the Sanskrit and then I'll say two of them in English. Jayata, should I turn on my tambura, my little handy cellular tambura? That's not working. Okay. Jayata tedikam janmana vraja shrayata indira sasvadatrahi dayata drisyatam dikshutavakas tvaitritasavas tvam vichinvate. So remember, they're looking for Krishna in the forest, and they say, "Oh, beloved, your birth in the land of Raja or Vrindavan has made it exceedingly glorious, and thus the goddess of fortune always resides here. It is only for your sake that we, your devoted maidservants, maintain our lives. We have been searching everywhere for you, so please show yourself to us. And then I was interested in the second one because it actually mentions the season of autumn. Is there time for me to do the Sanskrit, do you
Yes.
think?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So the Sharat season is the autumn season. So it starts with that word, Sharadudasaye, Sadhu Jata Sat, Sarasi Jodara, Shri Mushadrisha, Saratanatha Sukadasika, Varadanitnato, Neha Kimvada. So they're speaking in a very feisty way to Krishna. They're angry at him for leaving them. And they say, "Oh, Lord of love, in beauty, your glance excels the whirl of the finest, most perfectly formed lotus within the autumn pond. Oh, bestower of benedictions." Here they get really feisty, they say. "You are killing the maidservants who have given themselves to you freely without any price. Isn't this murder?"
Yeah.
So
And
they
I
go on with
and I love that image of the autumn pond. This isn't the spring pond. It's the
yeah,
autumn. It's that heavier, it's a more serious tone, and they're being joking with him, like, you slay me with your beauty, but they're also, they there's yeah, I'm sure it's no mistake that it was brought that image of the autumn pond was brought into.
yeah. And I don't know if this is the way it is in the West. You can correct me. Maybe you know better than I do. But in India, the autumn season is the time when lust is incited in people's hearts, and the women and the animals become pregnant in the autumn season, and then in the spring the babies are born. So this is the time of Krishna's rasa dance with the gopis, the most beautiful moon of the year, the
Yeah.
autumnal moon, which is, so yellow and sometimes even orange,
Yeah.
right? The most stunning moon of the year is in this autumn season, and it's said to excite desire in the
Mm.
hearts of all beings. So,
Yeah. Well, I know I can speak for this in the West as a gardener and herbalist that this is the time when you plant bulbs and when you plant trees. If you want to plant bushes or trees or anything with roots, the autumn, you do that in the autumn because it's wet and then everything will start to get heavy and then it will go to sleep and build its strength and then grow in the spring or, daffodils, tulips, any of your bulb plants, garlic, onions, all of those are to be, those are supposed to be sown into the earth in the fall, because of that ripening. It's the most fertile time for planting roots and
right.
and
So, what
bulbs.
does that
Yeah.
mean for going deep, right? Roots for going deep. So, it's the time for going deep into ourselves. And then, when we come into winter, I almost feel like we're meant to be hibernating in the winter. Like you said, bears go in the caves to dream, right?
Mm.
I almost feel like our modern society is so out of whack with nature because we really should also be going into a cave to hibernate. But after we've put down these deep roots of our deepest intentions,
Yeah.
autumn season, which then bear, come to life in the spring. So
Yeah. And so I'm having this image of, like, this time of year, our practices could be, we feed and nourish our spiritual bodies by prayer and offering the candles and offering ourselves and our possessions, and then there's the physical of eating soups and hearty
mm,
root vegetables that nourish and build our immune systems, and eating mushrooms. Wild mushrooms are this is a great time for foraging and eating mushrooms and astragalus roots, all these root herbs too that fortify our immune system for the deep winter.
wow.
Taking a little bit more time to cover our bodies in oils as an Ayurvedic practice,
Yes.
body oiling. Um, Yeah, and then just, savoring, I think savoring, the relationships, like you said, that we do have, the family gatherings, can we really get the most out of the autumn by using these lessons from nature, from poets, from these spiritual traditions, so that we can enter into the most challenging part of the year, which is the winter.
Yes, and it's so beautiful when we think of the colors, like the colors of those root vegetables and the colors of those nourishing soups. And, I think of delicious minestrone soup and, with the chickpeas and the kidney beans and all of those beautiful autumn colors. And then coming to the point of, to the time of Thanksgiving, which is what? It's when the native people, the indigenous people, helped those English settlers, or maybe Spaniards as well, to live through the winter. They taught them what they could eat because they were in a new on a new continent, and they were so gracious. Okay, we'll show you. We'll show you what you can eat to live through the winter here.
Mm,
So beautiful. The
yeah,
colors and the textures and the forms and the I think really it's all about gratitude because it's looking back and with gratitude for the harvest, you know,
yeah,
all the bounty that can help us live through the rest of the year.
yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Rukmini. This has been, as always, such a enriching. This conversation was like a big bowl of minestrone soup. So I'm gonna take that with me and
I
and I
have a
hope.
beautiful cookbook called Heaven's Bounty. I think that's what it's called. Heaven's Banquet, I think is what it's called. And she says in that book that when you make minestrone soup, don't bother making anything else for dinner because no one will eat anything else anyway.
That's brilliant. Yeah, yeah. So this is the time to nourish ourselves and to, nourish all parts of ourselves, and to give. I love that gratitude too. Just giving thanks for what we have, and the seeds that have been sown and are now on our plates. It's quite an amazing time of year. So,
And also giving thanks for unknown blessings that are on their way that we might not even know about or see or have any cognizance of, but giving gratitude for those unknown blessings that are on their way. Thanksgiving is the ultimate. And just in closing, I would just like to say for everyone who's listening and for you, Ashley, may you live for 100 autumns.
mm. That's beautiful. You as well. And yeah, and I'd love for, one thing that both Rukmini and I love is your comments. So please leave some comments for us. Let us know, as Rukmini always likes to say, like, what spoke to you, like what stood out, what inspired you from these different musings and sharings, and, what's something that you might take away, what's something that you might hold on to or teach someone,
Yes.
and leave us those comments so that we can also revel in the dialogue as
How
well.
we this is how we build community, right?
That's
When
right.
we hear and something nourishes our hearts, and then we can share it, and it reverberates through all of creation.
Cool. Well, thank you again. And thank you to all of our listeners. And we will continue these conversations of devotional mysticism and plant teachers. We will pick it up again next month. So stay tuned. We will have another rich morsel for us to uncover and unpack together. So till we see you then, take good care.
Thank you
Bye,
so much.
everyone.
Bye bye.